Hey guys, Prangell Gaming here, welcome back to the Talk the Ball. This is the 36th installment, and can I just say, I'm using a new microphone, so if the audio sounds different, then I can only apologise. I'm trying my very best to get it a right balance. Now, I don't know how it's going to sound 100% till I actually go to editing this, so I do apologise if it doesn't sound as good as what it usually does. But if there are any questions or opinions you do want to leave in the comment section, then do feel free to do so, as it is something that I like to look at. I always use your content every week. But if you haven't seen any of the other 35 installments, then why not go check them out? There's going to be a link in the description of this video for the last Talk the Ball, or you could access the playlist by clicking the I button. But as always, if you have any questions or opinions, do feel free to put them in that comment section, as I want a Millwall voice throughout. And while you're down there, don't forget to put your score predictions for that huge quarter-final match against Tottenham Hotspur at White Hart Lane, and add what you felt went right and wrong in that match. Now, with this podcast, do bear in mind I recorded it on a Sunday this week, as a few things had to be juggled around, and this is the only time I could get to record it. So if anything has become outdated, or if any new news stories appear, then I'll cover them next week in the next Talk the Wall. Let's take a look at your score predictions for the games that Millwall played last week, those being against Peterborough United and MK Dons. So we'll start with the first one, which was against Peterborough United, and two of you actually got the score right for this game. Yes, that's right, congratulations Riley Solo and Joe Conway, for you both thinking that the game would end 1-0. Now, there were three people that weren't far off the score prediction, and two of them thought that it would end 0-0 in a simple draw, and then someone else thought it would end 2-0. The two people that thought it would be a draw was Ronnie Temple and Dylan Game, and to be honest, they were playing it safe. After considering the amount of draws we had recently, that was probably a fair prediction to go for. And the guy that thought it would end 2-0 was Joe Holloway. The final person to predict was Liam Gaming 2, who thought the game would end 2-1 to Millwall. As for the game against MK Dons, no one also got the score for this game right at all, but a few of you were marginally off, as Ronnie Temple, Joe Holloway, Joe Conway and Liam Gaming 2 all said that Millwall would win 2-0. Obviously not expecting MK Dons to grab a goal in this one, considering how good our clean sheet record was. Harry Greenway also was very close, as he got really the right amount of goals, but just that one goal off for Peterborough, as he said that Millwall would win 3-0. Finally, two people said that Millwall would win 1-0. Those were Dylan Gaming and Riley Solo. Riley also added Moo. Last week I asked you guys a question to do with Millwall's rivals in the league, and the question was, what team in League One is underperforming? And three of you responded to this. Two of you saying one of the teams, and then someone else saying another. So both Liam Gaming 2 and Riley Solo thought that Gillingham were going to be one of the teams, which is a fair example, to be honest. The other person to give his opinion was the Veggie Tube. He said, I think MK Dons should be there, as they got relegated from the Championship last year. And with that one, it's also another great example, as they sit 14th in the league table and haven't had the best of seasons, despite having some quality players in their ranks. Anyway, I said I would talk about three of the sides in the league, and so I'm going to break down one by one the team with the top goal scorer, best and worst results. So we're going to start with our major rivals, Charlton Athletic, who currently sit 16th in the league under Carl Robinson. And times haven't been great for this relegated Championship side, as summer signing Nicky Iose, who scored 7 goals for him, has just left Charlton and rejoined former club Swindon Town on loan in the January transfer window. And it's safe to say it obviously isn't pleasing to see that, with their top goal scorers having only 8 goals, with Josh McGuinness and Ricky Holmes leading the scoring charts. As for the best result, well, it was a 5-1 win against Bristol Rovers in the league. And in terms of their worst result, well, it's a result that came pretty recently, as they lost 4-3 to Shrewsbury Town on last 2 Saturdays ago, which was really bad for them. I'm going to be honest. That was a result where you think if a player scores a hat-trick, usually you're going to win the game, but that didn't happen when Ricky Holmes got his hat-trick. And well, their manager also came out and said that some of the players should not be playing for the club, so there's a lot of issues in that team at the moment that he's going to have to sort out. I think he's a good manager, I think he will, but obviously it may take a little bit of time. My next side is Walsall. We had a great season last time round, finishing only a point off of Burton Albion, who finished second in the league. Though this season's been poor for John Whitley's side standards, some could argue that Tom Bradshaw was the player really doing the business for Walsall, and without him season, they've really struggled. And as I speak, they are 12th in the league table. As for the top goal scorer, well, it's Erhan Utsma leading the scoring charts with 13 goals, all of which have come in the league, which is not bad to see. He was one of those players when he played us, I really thought he challenged us and maybe could have got a goal in that game. Now, the worst result that Walsall have suffered is a 4-0 loss to Rochdale back in November. And former Lion, Simeon Jackson, is out there and he's only got 6 goals this season. The final side is one that Liam Gaming 2 and Riley Solo said. So that was, of course, Gillingham, and they have a new head coach as they changed their system and the way the club is run to suit the new head coach, A.D. Pennock, which is a big deal. But since his arrival, Gillingham have only won 1 game in their 9 games, drawing 5 and losing another 3. Well, that was at the time when I actually got this statistic. And well, after just missing out on the playoffs last season, Gillingham would have been hoping for a great season, but they only sit 17th with just 6 points off the relegation zone, and with their top scorer J. Emmanuel Thomas, who scored 11 goals, going to QPR again off of his loan. That is frustrating for Gillingham, though he didn't actually score for A.D. Pennock's side when he arrived at the club. Now, as for their best result, it was a 3-0 win against Rochdale, and well, their worst result happened twice, as they lost 5-0 to Scunthorpe United and Tottenham Hotspur, which is not a bad result when you play against Tottenham, but against Scunthorpe, maybe that's not the best of results. So as I always like to do, I like to give you 2 questions in the podcast, and well, this week I'm going to give you my first one right now, and it is, now that we've had the most underperforming sides, what sides do you think are the most overperforming sides? Let me know and I'll cover it next week. It'd be great if you could leave a reason why as well, as that would help me with my argument and talking about why you think they actually are overperforming this season. Moving on to your comments for this week, and we're going to start with Harry Greenway's comments, but what we're going to do is we're going to bond his question and his comment together. So he said, Leicester was the best day of my life, but who is the best team that you've seen Millwall play? And to be honest with this one, I actually don't know whether I've seen anyone big play Millwall, barring when we're going to be playing Tottenham Hotspur. Really, apart from smaller Premier League clubs like Aston Villa, which quite a few of you have seen us play, and obviously maybe the ones that we've been this season, Bournemouth, Watford and Leicester. Well, obviously Leicester probably the biggest one that I've seen us play, beating the Premier League champions. That was something else, because I didn't actually see them when they played Manchester United. I wasn't actually into football then, so I never watched it. I know that we did pretty well, but obviously we did lose ultimately. But yeah, I never did watch that game, so I've never seen us play Manchester United. The next person to comment was Jadams, who said, we can still reach the automatics. And with this one, you're right, we're only 11 points off of the top, but with Fleetwood, who are second, we're even closer, as we're only 6 points off of them. Though Fleetwood are in inspired form currently, it's going to be hard to catch them. They're one of these sides that are just using momentum the whole way through. You could argue Millwall the same, but Fleetwood potentially shouldn't be in that position, but they're doing so well despite being there. The VeggieTube is the next person to comment, and he said a few things, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about them and respond to them. The first was, who do you think is the most overrated player at Millwall? For me, it's Aidan O'Brien, and well, this one is interesting. I thought that some of you would like him and some of them would not like him as much as the others. And well, just as a little quick story here, my dad actually hates Aidan O'Brien, I'm not even joking, and hate is a strong word, but it's true. He cannot stand watching him play on the pitch in a Millwall shirt. Anyway, in terms of my overall most overrated player, I said it in the last episode, it's Lee Gregory. He doesn't score the easier chances and has missed a lot of chances in a Millwall shirt, and well, I think he should have been scoring some of those chances. But you could argue he's the player that saved us in these last 2 matches. Anyway, moving on into his second question, and he asked, do you think Tom King will take Jordan Archer's place in the team? And now, before I say anything, Riley Solo said he didn't think this would be the case. Now, in my opinion, I have been impressed with King, and when I've seen him play, he's actually looked pretty good, but I really don't think he's going to overtake Archer's place in the team, because Archer's so important. But I do feel if they battle for the number 1 spot, that would really help out each other, and if we can keep them both at the club and make this happen, it will help out Millwall incredibly, and that's really what I want to happen, to be honest. Liam Gaming 2 is the next person to comment, and like always, he has a large number of comments and questions, so we're going to have a look at them and then say a few things. So his first was 2 named songs, which we always sing in pretty much every podcast, so what we're going to do is we're going to sing them now. So first one was Super Nil, Super Nil, Super Nil Harris. And his second one was No one likes us, no one likes us, no one likes us, we don't care, we are Millwall, Super Millwall, we are Millwall from the dead. On to more of Liam's comments and questions, and the first one is, do you think that we will do well in the playoffs? And really this does depend on who we are up against in the playoffs. You've really got to see there's 3 other sides, and well, judging by the current teams, Scunthorpe, Bolton and Bradford, we do really stand a chance against a couple of these. I think if we play Scunthorpe, we might have a chance to beat them. Now, I'm saying that, but they were the last team that beat us, so you just never know. Scunthorpe, they're doing quite a lot better than people thought they would, but obviously it's all up to the day and the game, and if Millwall continue their run, you just don't know, but I think it's going to be a big ask to continue that run all the way through. As for Bolton, I don't think we stand a chance. We've lost to them twice this season, 2-0, and we've never really played that well against them. They're a very strong side that was relegated from the Championship, and I think they are the stronger contenders to go back up. They obviously have that experience. They don't have the most of money, but I think their manager's pretty good, and they've got a strong squad moving forward. And as for Bradford, I reckon we could beat them, as we did it last time we was in the playoffs against them, so why not do it again? The next question that Liam asked was, do you think we need to sign a defender? And I don't actually think we do. Maybe Jake Cooper, but apart from that we have a strong defence, because we have Hutchinson, who's a very strong physical player that has been limited to game time due to his injury, but he will improve over time and he is a valuable player. And as many people are forgetting, we do also have Sid Nelson, someone I'm not a big fan of, but when he's been out on loan to Newport County, he's severely been helping them get a lot better, though obviously they are slipping down in the bottom place in the table. They're struggling, they may not stay up, but at the point Sid was really making a difference for them. Then asked a huge question, which was, who do you think is the best captain? And well, I've just got to say this, Tony Craig would be my answer. He's the captain, there's no need to change the captain. That is kind of what I struggle to understand it when people like to say, oh yeah, but Steve Morrison's a better captain. You just don't know. Tony Craig is the Mill captain though, and he's worked for a real tough patch with the fans. Some are liking him, some are slagging him off. It's not the best of situations, but he isn't a bad captain, and most of all, he is our captain. That's what you've got to understand. He is Millwall Football Club's captain, so we can't be saying who's the best captain, though I do understand why you do it, because there are a few arguments within the club. Liam then asked, do you think King will be the next number 1 at Millwall? And well, if we go back to a similar question, which was what Jadam said, then I would say potentially, but it does depend on how good he becomes and how long Jordan Archer sticks around. Do you think Gregory will stay is Liam's next question, and with this one I feel there'll be no reason for him to go, as we took the gamble on him and brought him to the Football League, so why would he go? Also, if he wanted to go, I'm sure he would have left by now, because he's getting to his prime, and so if he stays with us, then I reckon it will be hard for me to see him go. Plus he is contracted to us until when he's around about 30, and he's seeming to like the club even when he's playing for a drought, which is good to see, because some players can't take it at Millwall. His next 2 questions are similar, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bond them together. And he said, do you think we will reach the Premier League after we get promoted to the Championship? And with this one, I doubt it. Now, hear me out here. It's because of our finances. We don't have the best. And, well, if Berylson sells us, then maybe, but it's unlikely that we're going to be sold by Berylson, because he does love the club. And, well, we've always been a Championship or League 1 side, with short spells in the top flight and Division 4, which was League 2. And, well, we are a great team. I think we have the spirit, but spirit cannot always help you get to the Premier League, because money is coming to the Championship, and as I've said many times, I think that soon we may even be priced out of the Championship, because that's the way football's going, unless something severely different changes in the current market of football. Mustafa Nur then asked, how many signings do you think we need in the summer, and in what positions? He added, in my opinion, Cooper permanently, a left midfielder, a left-sided centre midfielder, an experienced striker, and also Wallace signing permanently. He ended with, moo, come on you Lions. And to be honest with this one, I don't think we need that much. Now, maybe Wallace and Cooper, because they would be great signings, and obviously they should be top of Neil's list if he is going to sign players, because they're players that are currently at the club, currently with the team, so it's good to have players that know what they're doing. And I would agree with you with an experienced ST, but that does depend on whether Fred stays or goes. Now you could say obviously Fred isn't that experienced, but no, he's a good player, he does the job up top. Now he's got a lot to learn, but maybe a stronger striker coming in if Fred goes would just be a little bit of backup in case Morrison and Gregory aren't firing on all cylinders, because we have seen it this season, it's cost us when they're not at their top game. Like Biscuit 253 was a second to last comment, and he said, I was the mascot when we played Peterborough United, also please could could you sub to me? And well, I have hit the sub button with my subbing account that I have, so I hope you've seen that on your subscribers go up. Hopefully you've noticed it. But also I do want to say to you guys, why don't you go check his channel out, and if you'd like to subscribe, go ahead and do so. I always like to help you guys out and gain subscribers so you can all be up in the Mill community and we can all be talking about the stuff involved in Millwall. Joe Holloway is the next person to comment, and his first one was a call to get Gregory dropped. He said, I think Gregory should be dropped for the games against Posh and MK Dons. And I actually know Joe, I spoke to him after this comment and he is really regretting it madly, as in these games he played 2 and he scored 3. Not bad for a player that should be dropped, eh Joe? His final comment was, whoever scores first will win. Prangell Gaming every single week. And I say, you be nice. I mean this in a sense of, if you look at the bigger games, like when we're playing in the FA Cup, it's a lot more when you score the first goal. It does make the difference. Though when you're playing a side like Tottenham, I don't think this rule stands because they can score a mad amount of goals. But if we look at League One, you can have a field day with scoring goals because you can score 3 and not always mean that you're going to go on and win. So it does differ when you play the bigger sides, like when we did against Watford and Leicester and Bournemouth. When you score the first goal, sometimes it rattles the team, especially if they're bigger than you. But I don't think that would be the case when we play Tottenham, but it does usually make a difference. Moving on to this week's Loan Watch, and as per usual, we start our viewing at Northampton Town, where Greg Wild played 80 minutes of football for Northampton Town as they beat Charlton Athletic 2-1. Though Greg didn't score or assist in this game, it's great to see he's getting more and more game time. He might come back next season with match fitness, and that will be real key for him. Obviously, as the argument was, he wasn't getting game time, he didn't have that match fitness, and that really was an issue. So maybe he'll come back next season and challenge. You just don't know. Obviously, there's been a few players that have saved their Millwall careers. Webster would be one of the names that springs to mind, and obviously Cummins as well, 2 defenders. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Wild next season. If we drop down into League 2, we'll see that Sid Nelson made his return from a hamstring injury by getting 45 minutes in the centre of midfield, if I'm seeing his positioning rightly, as Newport County lost 4-0 to relegation rivals Leyton Orient. And I'm gonna be honest, this is really bad for Newport, as this puts them in big trouble, meaning they need 11 points to get out that relegation zone. And well, the story was similar for David Ford's Portsmouth side. They lost 1-0 to Crewe Alexander, though this doesn't actually mean as much as what it did for Newport County for Pompey, as they have a game in hand over Carlisle and could overtake them with a win. We drop down into non-league football now, and we see that Alfie Pavey didn't feature for Hampton and Richmond Borough as they drew 0-0 when they travelled to Maidenhead United, while Chris Twydock and Kyron Farrell's Braintree Town lost 2-1 to Wrexham. And while Farrell didn't feature, Twydock did come off the bench in the 52nd minute, and he didn't actually have an effect on the game's result in the end. Mill did have 2 games last week, and they were fortunate to get a spot kick in both games to actually go on the winning. And if I'm 100% being honest, I don't think we deserved to win either of those games. We really did struggle. Now, we played Peterborough United on Tuesday and then faced MK Dons on Saturday, so I'll start with happened against Peterborough United. So in this game, it probably wasn't the best of first halves, with a half volley by Shaun Williams just going over the bar and a Marcus Maddison free kick being saved by King, which were really the pick of the bunch for either side in the game. But in the second half, there was a more importance to it, as Millwall actually went on to get the goal, as Lee Gregory was brought down in the box by Anthony Grant, and well, he proceeded to take the penalty, which he then scored, and this would be the only goal in the game, though Peterborough would have some great chances later on in the game, with another Marcus Maddison free kick being saved, an opportunity for Borough to tap the ball in just being avoided, along with a half volley being saved by Tom King. Into the game against MK Dons, and well, like the Peterborough United game, there wasn't so much action in the first half, though this did change when Gregory headed the ball into the back of the net following a Shane Ferguson cross, which really made MK Dons come alive, and they did respond, I believe 6 minutes later, with a long range effort from Ben Reeves. And well, it's unfortunate we did concede, but that obviously meant it was 1-0 at the break. And MK Dons had another huge chance later on in the game as Dean Bowich managed to head the ball over the bar. I honestly don't know how he did it. He was unmarked and he probably should have put that away, and that really was why they didn't go on to win this game. And well, it would actually be Millwall that would win this, courtesy of another Lee Gregory penalty, as he was brought down in the box. And well, for that reason, I'm going to have to go ahead and give Lee Gregory the player of the week, because he really saved our bacon. In the 2 games that he played, he got 3 goals, though they did have 2 penalties involved with them. Without those goals, we would have actually been behind many teams in this race for the playoffs, and that really would have severely hampered our push for these promotion spaces. Last week I asked you guys, how do you see Millwall lining up in 3 years time, and to of you gave your responses. So let's take a look at what you said, and we're going to start with Harry CD, who said he would base his team on current players at Millwall. So he said Tom King would be in goal, the left back would be Noah Cheeseman, the centre backs were then Nelson and Hutchinson. As for the right back, he said it would be Marlon Romeo. Now moving into the midfield, he said O'Brien or Chris Twaddock would be on the left side of midfield. Thompson would be the captain, partnering Harry Donovan in the centre of the pitch, while Jed Wallace would be on the right. He finished off with saying Lee Gregory and Harry Smith would be up top. And I do really like this team. Most of all, I think it's possible. So let me know what you guys reckon in the comments of this video. Do you like this team, or would you make any changes? Moving on to Joe's team, and he said Archer would be in goal, the right back would be Romeo, there would be a new player in the left back position, and then Cooper would be partnering someone new in the centre of defence. As for the left midfielder, he thought that another new player would be there, but the right midfielder would be Jed Wallace. The midfield would then be Ben Thompson, who would be the Millwall captain, and Callum Butcher being his partner, and up front he thought O'Brien and Smith would lead the line. And this team sounds pretty interesting to me, as he believes Cooper and Jed will stay, along with Archer actually maintaining his place in the squad, but he does expect Gregory to be out the team. So do you guys agree with this team? Let me know in the comment section down below. I did say I'd pick 3 players and talk about them in this podcast, so the 3 players I've picked are Harry Donovan, Christian Mabulu and Chris Twaddock, and I picked these because you don't always hear so much about them, and they're equally as promising. So we're going to start with Harry Donovan. He's a centre midfielder, and he's previously of Arsenal's youth academy like Harry Gerlin. He is someone that isn't talked about so much, and well, he's only 18, and in my opinion in the next year and a half we will see much more of him. Obviously we do have quite a big number of midfielders, so that could be the only thing that really hampers his development as a Millwall Football Club player. As for Christian Mabulu, he's a player that was really sought after when Millwall got him, and for me, I'm surprised he hasn't been given the chance in the Checker Trade Trophy, as if Harris was to have done that like he did with Paul Rooney, I think it really would have paid off. As for Mabulu, he's a strong physical defender, and he's very tall at 6'4". So I think that the 20-year-old should get some playing time in a Millwall shirt in the next 3 years to prove his potential that many clubs actually saw in him. I think he's really going to be one to look at, and if he does get time to play, then obviously it'd be interesting to see how he does. And finally, we're going to start with a player that's actually the most talked about here, and that's Chris Twaddock. Many have seen his talent in a Millwall shirt already, as he shone in the Checker Trade Trophy when he played for us, but Chris has also gone out on loan and is pressing while he's on loan to Braintree Town. He can play on the left and the right, which I think is absolutely perfect, and I think next season will be a big year for Chris. Whether he's out on loan or in a Millwall shirt, I couldn't actually say, but the 20-year-old that is Canadian, that's gone and scored goals for his national side, does have an impressive Millwall career ahead of him. I can just tell it. And if he doesn't, I'll be very shocked, because he's a player that really looks good, and if he can play in the both sides of the wings, then that is something that really also goes in his favour. The second question of the week that I'm going to be asking you is, who is your most underrated Millwall player? Who do you feel is not getting appreciated as much as what they should be when they're playing in a Millwall shirt? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll also talk about a player that I reckon could be, and then obviously we'll see and we'll compare, so do let me know what you think. Let's move into the ups and downs, and we're going to start with League 2 this time round, and Doncaster Rovers are topping the league with 69 points, and that is 4 points ahead of Plymouth Argyle in second, after a 0-0 draw with Crawley Town that was. But the stats just stand for themselves, with a former Millwall player, John Marquis, being the first player to score 20 goals for the club in the Football League since Peter Kitchen 40 years ago, which is an incredible stat if I'm honest, and I think that John Marquis is working wonders out there. I've heard a few Northampton fans saying they are gutted that he didn't sign him, and I'm really upset that he never had that time to shine, and he never had that potential really at Millwall. He loved the club, but he never really did the amount of goals that he's doing here at Doncaster. And if I'm honest, if Plymouth were to win the game that they have in hand, they would only be a point off of Doncaster, but Doncaster would still be top of the table, so it still wouldn't worry them too much. Second is of course Plymouth Argyle, and as I said above, they do have a game in hand over Doncaster Rovers, but they sit with 65 points after beating Carlisle United, and this Plymouth side looks set to gain automatic promotion a year after failing to do so in the playoff final when they lost to AFC Wimbledon. Either way, I do feel that Plymouth have 4 teams outside of the top 7 that really mean that their season could be really excelled after playing those games, and well, Derek Adams' men will be hoping to continue their fine form to book their spot in next year's League 1. The final team is actually Carlisle United, who sit third in the league table, and recently they've they've had some really bad times, and they've lost their past 3 games to Portsmouth, Cheltenham and Plymouth, with the earlier of sides being only 2 points off of United with a game in hand, and Portsmouth aren't the only team that do have a game in hand over the Cumbrians, as Luton Town sit 4th and are only a point off of them while playing Stevenage and after that playing Carlisle. So Luton really could trouble the side that sits 6 points off of falling out of the playoffs. So unless Carlisle pick up their form, they really could be out of this promotion battle, which is a really bad idea for Keith Curle's side because he did so well with them at the start of the season. What about in the Championship? Well, there is a new side in the bottom 3 of the Championship, and in fact we're going to start with that side as they sit 22nd, and that is Bristol City. They drew 0-0 with Burton Albion but do fall into the relegation zone following Tony Mowbray's Blackburn Rovers beating Wigan Athletic 1-0 again to pick up 3 points, and this time they moved out the relegation zone. And I've got to just say quickly, Blackburn do look the more likely side to get out of this drop zone, and Mowbray really looks like he can keep them up. But Bristol City, as for them, this story isn't very good as they haven't won in 6 league games, and during that time they did only manage to pick up 3 draws, so they are struggling at best of times, and their manager really is going to be hoping that they can stay in this league. 22nd are Wigan, who could have drastically improved their season had they not lost against Tony Mowbray's Blackburn Rovers. They do still have time on their hands, and well, the fact they only currently need 4 points means they could really just about stay up, though they will have to pick up form as Warren Joyce's men haven't won in 4 matches, while they also scored the lowest amount of goals in the league with 30, which is actually 5 less than the games they've played, which is it's just mind-boggling after how many goals they scored last season in League 1. And just another stat that makes it even worse, they scored 2 less than Rotherham United, who sit bottom of the table. It really could be crisis mode for Wigan at the moment. They need to start picking up some results if they are to stay in the Championship this season. As mentioned just a second ago, Rotherham United do sit 24th in the league, and by this point it would take a miracle to keep Rotherham United in the league, as they still only have 17 points while now needing 18 points to remain in the league, and with only 33 points available and only being able to have won 4 matches so far this season, time is really running out, and I do expect they will be confirmed relegated within the next month really, because it's not looking good for them. Now on to our final section of the podcast, and that is the Millwall news. Now with this week we have 5 stories ranging from Millwall getting a new fan on the board to Shaun Williams announcing that he'll like a new deal with Millwall, and that of course means that our first story is Mickey Simpson is the new fan on the board following Pete Garston stepping down from the role. And just a small backstory for Mickey Simpson, he was one of the founders of a Millwall supporters group called the Millwall AMS Supporters Group. The second story comes from Neil Harris as he again calls Lee Gregory brave for taking the spot kick that led to Millwall beating MK Dons on Saturday. He said that he believed it was a penalty as Gregory had his shirt pulled, and he doesn't usually go down unless he really feels he has to, because he always likes to battle through the challenges. Tony Craig is subject of the next news story as Neil Harris praised the skipper for reaching a milestone of 300 career appearances for Millwall after he featured against Oldham Athletic. He said Tony has been a key player and an important part of the defence that's been so great this season. Harris also said Tony doesn't always run, so he isn't always a player of being risked out of the position he's playing in. The next story comes as Harry Smith admitted after the Peterborough United game that he didn't have the best of matches of his short professional career, but he said he will work to improve with the gaffer and always works with Neil on objects of his game that are not up to scratch yet. He also added that he's been working with Tony Craig to improve his game with the ball being crossed into him along with many other training techniques. Shaun Williams is the subject of the final story as he said he loves Millwall Football Club and wishes to sign on the dotted line as talks are ongoing to keep Shaun at the club with his contract up at the end of the season. Harris said we both want to stay or him to stay at the club, and so we are just about to try and get the right deal for both parties in this interest. But either way, he's an important member of the team and his experience would be second to none if we go up. So that is all we got time for today. Do feel free to put your questions and opinions in the comments section for the next Talk to Wall. However, before I go, don't forget to put your score predictions for that huge game in the quarterfinals against Tottenham Hotspur in the comments section, as next week I'll be covering the good and bad points of that match. And don't forget to tell me your opinions of the match and Mill as a whole. So like, comment, subscribe, and of course I will see you guys next week in the next Talk to Wall. But until then, goodbye.